Hello, my name is Paul Stevers, and I'm going to introduce you to some new business opportunities that can help mitigate carbon emissions on a large scale. These opportunities have emerged due to advances in technology, growth of facilities for carbon storage, and increased availability of climate finance. For the purpose of this presentation, carbon emission reduction and removal from the outside air are both considered to be carbon mitigation measures. These business opportunities can be scaled globally. The world is getting warmer at an increasing rate. Shown next is a short video segment that illustrates how the warming trend is correlating with rising atmospheric CO2 levels, and that these levels are continuing to rise at an increasing rate.
The world is getting warmer and at an increasing rate. A large reason for this is CO2 levels in the atmosphere. Since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, they have risen at an unprecedented rate. Rising CO2 levels have been correlating closely with rising global temperatures since 1880. This graph shows rising CO2 levels on a shorter time scale as measured at the Mauna Loa Observatory in Hawaii. On an even shorter time scale, you can see average CO2 levels have continued to rise despite a global economic slowdown from the coronavirus pandemic, which is shown by the black line. The red line on this graph shows the seasonal variations.
Why are these CO2 levels continuing to rise at an increasing rate? There are several factors contributing to this rising CO2 levels, but the main reason for this rise is that the total overall global energy demand appears to be increasing faster than the renewable energy generation growth rate. Therefore, carbon emissions need to be mitigated on a much larger scale than what has been occurring. In addition to expanding carbon emissions-free energy generating solutions as fast as possible, the world needs to implement carbon capture on a very large scale. Fortunately, there's been rapid progress in several complementary areas, including carbon capture by a range of technology communities. As well, captured CO2 can be utilized for a range of uses, including vertical farming, as well as being sequestered in the ground. Initially, CO2 captured from these power plants would be mostly sequestered in the ground. However, once there is a reliable source of low-cost CO2 available, this CO2 can be used for many other uses, including accelerating plant growth in indoor farms, strengthening concrete building materials, and production of carbonated beverages. There are several sequestration options for CO2 captured from power plants. This includes injecting CO2 into oil and gas fields, into balsamic formations, and into salt caverns. There are 4 technology communities that have and are continuing to make considerable progress, but are largely operating independently of each other. This includes the direct air capture, or DAC community, the carbon capture, utilization and storage, or CCUS community, the energy storage community, and finally, the renewable energy community. In addition, there are several industrial clusters around the world that have or are developing carbon capture and storage capabilities. As a result, progress can now be further accelerated by companies taking the initiative to develop projects in collaboration with the relevant technology communities and accessing available financing. This would result in a faster rate of development and scale-up of technologies to reduce carbon emissions. Shown next are some example technologies that have been developed and are being implemented by companies in these communities. The direct air capture, or DAC community, is growing quickly. Shown here are 4 DAC companies and their respective technologies. The first is Carbon Engineering's direct air capture solution, which captures carbon dioxide through a series of chemical reactions and returns the rest of the air to the environment. Then there is Climeworks' DAC technology, which has recently commissioned the world's largest DAC system in Iceland. Next is Global Thermostat's DAC Plus solution that can capture CO2 from both the outside air and a natural gas power plant. Lastly is TerraFixing's carbon capture solution, which has developed a process that works most efficiently in cold and dry climates. Shown here are examples of innovative technologies that have been developed and are being implemented by 3 different technology communities. The first is the Elm cycle by Net Power, which enables 100% capture of CO2 from power generated in a natural gas plant. The next is a large wind farm by Vestas Wind Systems, that has been manufacturing and improving this technology for more than 50 years. Finally, here is an energy storage technology by Enervenue, which developed a low-cost version of a nickel hydrogen battery that has been used in space by NASA for more than 30 years. Enervenue indicates that it has a 30-year plus lifespan and can complete more than 30,000 full cycles without degradation or usage restrictions. Each of these technology communities include these components to help them create new as well as innovate existing products and processes. Research centers support the development of both technologies and improving existing technologies. The business incubators and accelerators facilitate the creation of new and growth of existing companies. Some research centers include a business incubator in their facilities. As a technology community grows, the commercial segment can become very large. For example, the renewable energy community has become very substantial and now includes many manufacturers, constructors, operators, suppliers, and trade associations. In addition to companies initiating projects with the relevant technology communities, progress can be further accelerated by encouraging collaboration between these technology communities. Shown here are the same 4 technology communities as indicated earlier, but working together to accelerate action. By working together, many new projects, including ones in industrial clusters, can be developed and implemented to help accelerate a global scale-up of technologies to reduce carbon emissions. Projects can be constructed in many different configurations. Shown in the next 2 slides are 2 example configurations of technologies that can produce reliable power to the local electric grid while creating substantial negative carbon emissions. This is the first example configuration. It is a combined power system that includes both natural gas power plant and renewable energy farms. The natural gas power plant runs the Allen cycle, which enables 100% carbon capture while it delivers power to the power management system. This power management system is also supplied with electricity from wind and solar farms. To help manage the power more effectively, this power management system includes energy storage to manage short-term power or peaks or shortfalls. If a substantial amount of power is reduced for a longer period of time, such as if there is no wind for a few days, the power management system reduces the power to the direct air capture system of carbon dioxide. In this way, the power management system can maximize reliability of the power to the electric grid. The carbon dioxide that is captured from the power plant or direct air capture system can be utilized in beneficial ways such as accelerating growth of food in a vertical farm or be sequestered in the ground. Before I show the next configuration example, I will explain some more detail about Global Thermostat's DAC solution. Their basic version captures CO2 in a honeycomb contactor via their proprietary sorbent material. Then they use a low temperature process heat in the range of 80 to 100 degrees C to release the captured CO2. The plus version of their solution, which is called DAC Plus, has a very important added feature. It can cost-effectively capture CO2 from both the outside air and a natural gas power plant. It does so in these 3 simple steps. First, a DAC module starts its cycle by capturing CO2 from the outside air. After this module has captured all the CO2 it efficiently can from the outside air, flue gas from the natural gas power plant is fed into this module. Once the module has captured all the CO2 it efficiently can from the flue gas, it is then recharged using low temperature process heat. Then this cycle is started over again. Shown here is an illustration of a DAC Plus solution that includes flue gas input from a natural gas power plant. Global Thermostat indicates that very little additional capital is required to include this added carbon capture feature. The net result of this DAC Plus solution is that it can effectively capture CO2 from both the outside air and natural gas fueled energy source without the need of additional carbon capture technology such as the Allen cycle. Therefore, this solution can be widely deployed relatively quickly on a global scale as a negative emissions power plant. This is the second example configuration. It includes a standard natural gas power plant and Global Thermostat's new innovative direct air capture plus system that can cost-effectively capture CO2 from both the outside air and a natural gas power plant. All the remaining components in this schematic work in the same way as indicated in the previous slide. One of the substantial benefits of this combination of technologies is that it can be implemented with an existing natural gas power plant. This can increase the utilization of this existing power plant and turn it into a negative emissions facility. To accelerate the development of a range of carbon capture technologies and enable a larger pool of people to become knowledgeable about these types of technologies, demonstration projects utilizing these types of technologies could be implemented in major CCUS clusters such as the Alberta Carbon Trunk Line in Alberta, the Net Zero Teesside in the UK, or the Carbon Safe project in North Dakota. To view a more comprehensive list of these types of clusters around the world, you can view the Global Status of CCS 2020 report by the Global CCS Institute. As you can see from this map, there are many industrial CCUS clusters around the world. Each cluster contains a group of industrial facilities and includes infrastructure to transport captured CO2 so it can be stored in the ground. In some cases, the CO2 is stored locally. In other cases, it is transported to a different location where it is then stored. Most, if not all, industrial clusters welcome new participants to utilize the CO2 infrastructure. Therefore, industrial clusters can be good locations to build a facility that includes direct air capture technology. There are many organizations around the world working on CCUS issues, including technology development. This includes the Global CCS Institute, the IEA Greenhouse Gas R&D Program, and the National Carbon Capture Center in the US. As a result, there are many specialists who can be invited to help develop and evaluate demonstration projects located in CCUS clusters that could combine industrial capture technologies with direct air capture technologies and renewable energy farms as outlined earlier. This approach could help accelerate the development and scale up of these technologies around the world. In addition to CCUS research centers, there are several research centers that are focused on DAC. This includes the Center for Negative Carbon Emissions at ASU, Direct Air Capture Center at Georgia Tech, and the Elk Coast Institute. Researchers from these centers can also be invited to participate in the development and evaluation of demonstration projects in CCUS clusters. These centers can also help accelerate development and scale up of large-scale projects that include carbon capture, storage, and renewable energy farms. In addition to facilitating development and evaluation of demonstration projects in major CCUS clusters, CCUS and DAC research centers could be invited to work on projects that facilitate the overall scale-up of carbon emission mitigation technologies, such as the following ones. First, identify many good locations for facilities that could use DAC technology. Then estimate the capital and operating costs of an appropriately sized facility based on local conditions and the availability of energy. Next, explore complementary technology options such as the vertical farms for selected possible locations for implementation. In addition, explore options to receive CO2 from large emitters of this gas that can be sequestered in the same location as the selected DAC project location. Next, work with green bond specialists in order to evaluate selected projects and determine if they are green bond eligible. Next, reach out to potential partners who may want to finance or operate these facilities. Lastly, prepare proposals for funding for next steps needed for scale-up. There are several funding sources available to accelerate technology development and scale-up. This includes venture capital, government grants and related incentives, private grant funding, crowdfunding, and loans. To help companies obtain capital to build a facility, online platforms like Pure Earth can help facilitate long-term offtake agreements for the carbon that is expected to be captured and stored by this facility, as well to make investments in substantial projects more attractive to investors. These projects can be refinanced with green bonds after they are operational and generating income. The cost of DAC is quite high at this time, but is declining quickly. For example, the cost of capturing and sequestering a metric ton of CO2 in the new plant by Climeworks in Iceland was reported to be in the range of $600 to $800. Some DAC companies are indicating to me that they expect to be able to capture CO2 for less than $100 per ton when their respective technology is being implemented on a commercial scale. Since there are now many companies in the DAC community developing and implementing technologies, organizations seeking to implement projects that will include DAC should explore all their options and select the best ones. To reduce the financial risk of their project and gain more understanding of their best options for DAC, it may make sense to include more than one DAC technology in an initial project. For your convenience, at the end of this presentation, I will provide a link to a web page that will include links to several companies that are developing DAC technologies. The combination of advancing technologies, declining costs of these technologies, new locations to cost-effectively store CO2, and the increased availability of funding is creating huge new business opportunities for individuals and companies. Therefore, we encourage you to learn about these opportunities and how you or your company can benefit from them. Once you decide on the best opportunity for you or your company, we encourage you to develop it in collaboration with relevant organizations, generate substantial profits, and help create a sustainable world for us all. If these types of combined power and carbon capture systems were implemented in thousands of locations around the world, the scale of the impact on reducing carbon emissions would be extremely large, likely in the range of billions of tons of CO2 per year. Green bonds, which are growing quickly and totaled more than $295 billion last year, can be an effective way to finance these combined power systems. Shown next is a simplified flowchart illustrating how projects using these types of combined systems can be financed. Typically, green bonds are issued once a project is operational and generating income, so bridge financing is normally needed to construct and commission these combined power systems. This bridge financing normally includes at least two components. The first is the equity component that is provided by the owners of the project and the respective investors. The second component is a bank loan by one or more financing institutions like the Canada Infrastructure Bank. When the green bonds are issued to repay the bridge financing, they can be promoted to financial firms that are likely buyers of these bonds, such as the firms that have joined the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero, which have a combined total of over $70 trillion under management. Therefore, there is existing financial mechanisms and capital available to finance a large-scale implementation of these combined power systems around the world. In addition to the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero, there are other climate finance initiatives that include firms that would likely purchase green bonds to finance these types of combined power systems. For example, there is the Institutional Investors Group on Climate Change, which includes firms that have over $54 trillion in assets under management. Secondly, there is the Climate Action 100 Plus initiative, which includes firms with over $35 trillion under assets under management. And finally, the Coalition for the International Platform for Climate Finance, which includes firms with over $7 trillion in U.S. assets under management. Please note that some of the financial firms that are members of one climate finance initiative listed here may also be members of other initiatives that are also listed here. It should be noted that green bonds are financing mechanisms for established and rated borrowers that have projects that meet specific environmental attributes. Therefore, a relatively new project developer that is seeking to utilize green bonds may need to partner with a larger company or government entity that is considered to be established and has an adequate credit rating. Many companies are now facilitating issuance of green bonds. To view a list of some of these companies that are doing this work, visit climatebonds.net partners. On the next slide, I will outline steps to issue a green bond that has been suggested by Sustainalytics, which is a Morningstar company. Given below are a set of steps to issue a green bond as suggested by Sustainalytics. First, you need to create a document that details the type of projects to be financed, use of proceeds, management of proceeds, commitment to reporting. This is called the Green Bond Framework. Then this document needs to be verified by experts. This process is called external verification or second-party opinion. Afterwards, you can proceed like you would with any other bond. The usual steps apply here, which are similar to any conventional bond. This includes structuring the bond by working with an investment bank or an advisor and applying for a credit rating for this bond. As companies gain experience with different technologies and combinations of these technologies in industrial clusters, they can use their gained knowledge and experience to implement in many other locations. These solutions enable several different sectors of the economy to work together to benefit the whole of society. Capturing carbon through these technologies allows oil, gas, and power plant workers to continue working. As well, it helps governments and companies that depend on income from fossil fuels to transition to a low-carbon economy, which is critical for obtaining their support for this transition. To implement this solution on a global scale, it is important to build broad-based public support for it. This includes responding to related concerns, such as the ones about carbon capture and storage that have been expressed by several environmental organizations. For example, in July of 2021, about 500 organizations submitted a letter of concern about carbon capture and storage to the Canadian and U.S. governments. Therefore, I recommend that a team of experts in carbon capture, utilization, and storage industry work together to respond to the recently published concerns by these organizations. In conclusion, due to the steadily rising atmospheric CO2 levels, there is a need for exponential increase in global carbon emission mitigation measures. There are a wide range of carbon capture technologies available today, including ones that capture carbon from industrial processes and the outside air. Global thermostats technology can capture from both a natural gas power plant and from the outside air. Therefore, this solution can be widely deployed around the world relatively quickly as a negative emissions power plant. CO2 capture can be utilized for a range of uses, including vertical farming as well as being sequestered in the ground. Power plants with carbon capture can be combined with renewable energy farms to produce reliable power for the electric grid and generate negative carbon emissions. This solution can be financed on a global scale with green bonds that are purchased by firms that have joined the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero, which have a combined total of over $70 trillion under management. This solution helps governments, companies, and workers that depend on income from fossil fuels to transition to a low-carbon economy, which is critical for their support. To help catalyze the implementation of this opportunity on a global scale, we recommend the following. First, leverage the expertise of CCUS and DAC specialists along with the resources of CCUS clusters to help accelerate the development and implementation of combined power plants with carbon capture on a global scale. Next, invite independent groups such as Drawdown and the Center for Climate and Energy Solutions to work together to estimate the full impact of implementing this opportunity. Thirdly, inform companies in the oil, gas, power plant, solar energy, wind energy, and energy storage sectors about this opportunity, which can bring them many billions of dollars in funding. Fourth, inform financial institutions that facilitate issuance of green bonds of this opportunity, which will likely enable them to generate hundreds of millions of dollars in fees doing this work. Lastly, respond to the recently published concerns about carbon capture, utilization, and storage by 500 organizations to help build broad-based support to implement this opportunity on a global scale. Thank you for taking the time to view this video. If you're interested in more information, including links to websites of organizations mentioned in this video, please visit climatesan.org ACEM